Hey, boys and girls, weather report for April 6th, I believe, 2021. And I don't know what's happening. Do you know what's happening, Scott, my friend?
Oh, not a whole lot.
Yeah.
I know there's a new fissure opened up during that eruption on Iceland.
Oh, really?
Expecting it all to last about 4 more months.
So a fissure, like how long is a fissure?
It's quite a ways. It started sending lava down the narrow crag or valley between two hills, and they think eventually it's going to make it to the coast. But it's not a highly inhabited area, so it's just a kind of a minor flow.
Did you catch that stuff, Nick Zentner, on the huge, wide, like hundreds of miles long fissures that opened up in Washington and Oregon, and spilled lava for hundreds of miles, like
right
toward the coast, and did it multiple times. So they kept being these cracks, and I guess the North American continent was being stretched, and that's why you end up with these columns, these basalt columns. You know, they start out solid and then they crack up. And it's really interesting, but then these fissures kept opening up and blowing lava over. And they have, I think it's like hundreds of feet of lava deposits with ash. Some have ash in between that they can date and some don't. And it's really interesting. But man, it must have sucked to live there.
Must have.
At some point. Anyway. Yes. So, I don't know what the hell we got to talk about today. Nobody's coming in.
Well, it takes them a while to trickle in sometimes.
I lost 2 subs over the epistemology battles.
Wow. It's pretty intense stuff.
I was convinced last night by 2 people who know more philosophy than I do that my use of the word scientism and scientism is something that would more likely piss everybody off. And I explained to him that was kind of my point, is to slap everybody on the head and say, hey, look over here. So I've decided to come down to back to hard physicalist or propositional physicalist and hard naturalist or strict naturalist, and call myself. And I said, well, what can I use instead of scientism? And they said, science. And I said, well, can I use science, motherfucker? So I'm a science motherfucker-ist. If we must put an ist on the end of it, or an ism. I prefer something without an ism, to tell you the truth. You get tired of wearing isms.
I wonder what the hell Dessel's talking about right here. I think he's got multiple browsers open and he's typing in the chat of different, and this maybe is like the continuation of a conversation.
Johnny Mercer and the Pied Pipers. Is that a band? Or is that
I guess so.
Is that the name of
the song? Okay, so the song Johnny Mercer and the Pied Pipers is, so who's got the cutest personality? Is that something in the song, Dessel?
I think I have the cutest personality. No, probably not. Okay, the Pied
Did I say if you can't piss off the philosophic community, then what are you doing here? That's what I was meant to say before I got sidetracked.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta piss off as many philosophers as you
Yeah,
possibly
it's
can.
off the philosophic community. Otherwise, they just don't feel alive.
We don't need no stinking philosophy. We just need science. American
Okay,
popular
it is
theory. Oh
confirmed
my God,
that
they're from 1945.
what?
They're from 1945. Originally formed in the late 30s. I think they're dead.
Wow. Well, that'll be great to look up.
Are they still touring?
Maybe, maybe touring a nursing home near you.
They were in association with Frank Sinatra and Tommy Dorsey. My mom used to love Tommy Dorsey. And I'm like,
Mommy
Mom,
Dorsey was it for a while.
and I'm like, Mom, you're really fucking old. It's like, God, it's so dated. But this Mercer thing, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. Dessel, are you smoking something?
I think he thinks he's on a different conversation.
He's kind of with us because he's tracking a little bit. I'm not entirely sure. Hey, Molecular Alchemy. And let's see, we got Dessel, Molecular Alchemy. Hopefully somebody has a topic today because I don't. Oh, let's see. I'm feeling alive today, and it's spring, and it's beautiful, and we've had like thunderstorms, and the bugs are out, and we're just having a lot of really good things happening.
The more bugs, the more entertainment for your microscope.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And the more food for your Venus flytrap.
So when I had you guys muted last night, you were apparently talking about some fucking racial shit. I was showing bugs. Did you see that? When I was showing
I saw
bugs?
that, yeah.
Yeah. An interesting looking beetle. I was hoping that I was trying to entice Brian, Brainbug, but I couldn't get his attention. I think
come on in.
I think he has me blocked. Iron Charioteer and
Charioteer. Dessel wants to talk about Alan Watson Buddhism. So
you
might throw out a link to him.
Come on in, man. Come on in. Let's talk about Alan Watson Buddhism and see what the hell's wrong with Alan Watson. Betty thinks Alan Watson a woo head. Oh, the woo. I should get a Watts book out and see if I can find some stuff.
I kept an Alan Watts book at my desk at work for the longest time, but I don't know what happened to it.
Which one?
I can't remember.
Wisdom of Insecurity?
Maybe. I don't know.
That'd be a good one to keep at your desk.
Yeah.
That would be good.
Of course, that was back when we actually went to work to do work instead of staying home to do work.
Let's see. Matt Dillahunty is an atheist, prick, and useless human being. I think, Matt is, he's a little acidic, and he's got an edgy personality. He's unapproachable, but his logic and his mind work beautifully. Hi, Top Dog.
Hey, I'm back.
Well, I can hear you without roboting.
Yep.
What were you botting for?
I don't know. This is what my internet looks like now.
Wow. That's
just about like a bot.
115 up. What is that? What is that site again for checking your internet speed? I forgot. Oh, I got it up here somewhere.
Speedtest.net.
Yeah, I think. Let me look at that. I should check mine. Speed.
Well, come on in, Iron Charioteer, and tell us why you think he's an atheist prick.
Matt Dillahunty or Ellen Watts?
Matt Dillahunty.
Go. Let's see what we got here.
And Dessel needs to come on in and talk about Buddhism.
Up 505. Up, back down. Goddamn, now it's going down again.
Molecular Alchemy is comparing him to Simon Cowell.
Who?
The guy who started not America's Got Talent. I can't remember the name. The talent show that went on for years.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, yeah.
American Idol.
American Idol. There you go.
Yeah.
I can't believe I forgot the name.
So I got 437 down and 41 up. So Shouldn't I get more up with a 1 gig connection?
They never tell you about the up. The up's always slow.
What do you got down? What is your download? Top Dog? 115. So what if, oh, yeah, I'm about 4 times what you are. So, haha, I'm 4 times better. It's because we're in Minnesota. But if you go to rural Minnesota, you have to have a 110 baud modem and you have to put one of those old phones in it. We used to live way out in the country, and I think we were up to 4,400 bits per second or something like that. It was pretty bad. Not megabits. I think they were just regular bits. And they were the kind of bits, not like the John Maddox bits where he leaves out bits. 010001 or something. God, that irritates me when he does that. The ASCII code has 8 bits, not 6. Irritates me when people, and he's been corrected on it, and you think you would have learned it. So it's, my goodness.
Yep. Lucky we don't have to deal with the old internet noise. Go with the AOL and all that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was something. What was that thing before the internet? There was this huge thing where you could download like some movies, and there were all kinds of like social things on it, and you could download like the synopsis for TV shows. And that was back in the 80s before the internet, and it started with a P, and Microsoft was really pushing it for a while. And then it kind of died. It was just, somebody had a big server. But anyway, my mom, she didn't understand computers at all. And she just kind of like, what are they for? What good are they? But then she had to drive down from northern Minnesota, and she missed her soap operas. And I brought her onto that thing and showed her that she could get a synopsis for that day's, story on her Edge of Night or whatever the fuck she was watching. And holy shit, was she happy about the computer. She just loved computers after that. That was pretty cool. So I've been studying ribosomes, and they complicated. I don't know if you guys knew that or not. And Loki's here. But I'm not ready to talk about ribosomes yet, but pretty close to ready to talk about ribosomes. You can tell they evolved because the 3 parts of the ribosome are labeled APE or APE, right? It's pretty obvious to me, evolution. So I don't know, were there any streams at all last night? Did anybody do anything that we could look at or think about? Or does anybody have anything they want to talk about? We're going to have a short report.
Sorry, I was in looking at other things on YouTube.
Y'all are.
I was trying to pop out the live chat too.
Hey, Dessel, what the hell's wrong with Ellen Watts?
Everything.
Start at the top of the list. You got a list?
Yeah, sure. We could go through a list.
Number 1.
So real quick, I can't stay very long with you guys. I got to head out pretty soon. We'll try to make this a little brief right now. And if we want to continue the topic, we can do it again, follow up later. Also, just to let you guys know, you were kind of confused about Johnny Mercer and the Pied Pipers. That had absolutely nothing to do with anything you guys were talking about. I was just listening to the song at the time, and I enjoyed it. So I was advertising it because it's good for the soul.
Is that the name of the song, Johnny Mercer?
Oh, no, it's the particular song is Personality, and the band is Johnny Mercer and the Pied Pipers.
Okay, but it's like a 30s band, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Personality. Huh. Wow. Cool. I haven't listened to anything from the 30s since the 50s.
Yeah. Yeah, I try to go all over the place, whether it's like 20s, 30s music going all the way up until today. I try to have a good variety.
Oh, wow. Eclectic.
Yep.
Awesome. Oh, shit. Oh, I didn't do that. Okay, I did that. So anyway, number one on the list of what's wrong with Alan Watts.
So the first thing that I want to talk about is desire. And then after that, we're going to get to this whole mereological nihilism bullshit.
Okay.
And that applies to a lot of the people who are like come here on your channel too, because they're all mereological nihilism. And I think that's just stupid.
Okay.
Yeah. So the first thing he talks about, he's got this one lecture. It's called Nature and the Nature of Man or something like that. I could try to find the exact title, but he tries to talk about, you know, the nature of the world and the nature of humankind. And one of the first things that he does is he gives this complete caricature of what it's meant by like the material world versus the supernatural or spiritual world. And he tries to basically like reverse these concepts in order to try to sound profound when really all he's doing is just creating confusion in order to like convolute the whole conversation so that he can go off and say all sorts of absolutely ridiculous things about human nature and what it is that man should pursue in his life, particularly when it starts getting into like romance and sexuality and stuff. He really starts to like get into it there too. But it's this whole thing about that the Buddhists have about basically the deadening of desire, the decision to reduce the number of desires that you have, you know, or the intensity of certain desires, the attachment to things in this world. And the underlying arguments for this are that it leads to suffering, and that the things that you're attached to are merely transient. They don't last forever. And as far as I'm concerned, that's all just a bunch of bullshit. Suffering is not an objection. If something is worthwhile, then going through the suffering for its sake is perfectly fine. And I'm willing to accept going through that suffering for the pursuit of higher aims. And secondly, just because something's transient doesn't mean that it's worthless or not real. You know, let's pick it up from there. What are your initial impressions about desire?
Okay, you got Watts all wrong about desire. He was sort of a nihilist about desire. I mean, he willingly drank himself to death and womanized, and he was basically, that was his path. So you know, as far as, but the thing about attachment to desire and attachment to pain or attachment to anything is a trick about the difference between the rational mind. Like, okay, if you're suffering, you're in pain, right? But you don't suffer because unless you actually think about, oh fuck, I'm in pain. So that is the point. And are you talking about nature, man and woman, or can you get a particular? You see, because you got to understand, Watts wrote books, right? And the books, he told you what he really thought. And then he was a DJ, and he was sort of he got paid by people to be sort of a guru. You know, he got invited to all these different places, and he never quite accepted that role. But you know, he drank himself to death, and he did so willingly.
Just to say this, like there's a difference between like how a person lives their life versus what their philosophy has to say. Right. I'm critiquing his philosophy. It doesn't surprise me in the slightest that a person who espouses the kind of philosophy that Alan Watts did would end up drinking himself to death. That doesn't surprise me. But nevertheless, go ahead.
He was anything but a person that would recommend that you don't fulfill your desires. And
no, that's not true. Because the whole thing is like,
really, please.
I'll even find you the particular lecture that I'm talking about here. You know, let me look this up while I'm talking to you. But can you guys still hear me while I'm searching here through my browser?
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, so the whole thing though is that, like, yes, because for example, you know, he's talking about the act of possession. When we're talking about sexuality, the possessing of another human being. And he regards that as pathological or wrong somehow. And why? It's because the attachment to that person is wrong. He explicitly argues that, and that itself is a very common trope in Buddhism. So it should be no surprise to hear that from him, since he's supporting a kind of Eastern mysticism or Eastern philosophy. So when you're saying that he suggests that you should go ahead and fulfill your desires, maybe he lived that way, but as far as his explicit philosophy goes, where he's talking about the specific things that I'm mentioning here, it's a very standard Buddhist or even sometimes Hindu perspective where you shouldn't have these desires. You should erase these desires from your mental life. And the reason why is because they consider suffering, the suffering that's entailed by having these desires and going through the frustration of trying to fulfill them. This is considered to be some kind of objection against those desires. So let me, as you respond to that, I'm looking up this particular lecture so that way I can show you exactly what I'm talking about, just to show you that I'm not pulling this out of my ass.
Well, I just want to caution you that his lectures were oftentimes not particularly in keeping with what he wrote in his books. So,
basically you and I would agree then that that he's at least poor in the sense that he's incredibly inconsistent, because if he's giving lectures that contradict the content of his books, you're definitely not getting a coherent perspective from him.
No, he never did that. He always managed to spin it. He spun it like right at the edge of telling these people that there was no woo and that most of this was laughable and bullshit. But in his books, he talks about basically mostly laughing at all of this. And as far as what you're talking about with Buddhism, that is Hollywood Buddhism. That's the bullshit that they promote in the West.
No, absolutely not. That is not merely Hollywood Buddhism. I've read plenty of stuff in Buddhist philosophy, and the elimination of desire for the sake of the elimination of suffering is a central theme, irrespective of whatever school you're talking about, the Theravada, the Mahayana. You find that anywhere that you go, and because it's basically one of the founding pillars of the whole thing. Buddha sits there under that tree for hours upon hours to finally come to this enlightenment. And what is the enlightenment that he experiences? It is exactly this message about desire and suffering and the elimination of suffering, and that this gets you to nirvana. And then there's this corresponding legend about Mara, the evil being, realizing, oh shit, Buddha realizes it now. He knows he's got to get rid of desire and attachment. He understands. So let me tell Buddha to go into nirvana now and leave all the other people behind. So that way they stay attached to things and I can continue to make sure that their life sucks. And Buddha says, no, I'm not going to go into nirvana. I'm going to stay behind and teach these people to get rid of their attachments and to eliminate desire. So that way they can achieve nirvana too. This is textbook Buddhism, irrespective of the school.
You believe that all Buddhists agree on this, right? Is that what you think?
I would say that even though Buddhism is incredibly diverse in the number of things that they believe in, nevertheless, in terms of the underlying ethic here, it is extremely widespread throughout Buddhist thought. And here's the link to that lecture that I'm talking about. It's in the private chat.
And I think everything you said is absolutely horrifying and ridiculous. And I would never live my life that way.
I'm at least happy that you would not live your life that way. Could you reference me to any Buddhist scholars at all who would contest the idea of the elimination of desire?
Ellen Watts.
No, because I just got in the private chat right here on the side. You see that link? Click it, and he's saying exactly what I'm talking about is a problem.
Okay, I'll give it a listen, and I should be able to tell you what he's actually talking about here. So this is how long? 1 hour and 21 minutes?
Yeah, it's a lecture. It's not terribly long. It's just like an hour and a half.
Okay.
But he's got there's a bunch of free books of his on here too, on YouTube and stuff. And it's so much of it is just all the standard bullshit that you get from any kind of organized religion, whether or not you're talking Buddhism or Hinduism or Christianity or Islam or what's that?
You're westernizing Buddhist religion. I mean, you're westernizing it. And
No,
then
you can, Buddhism most certainly.
that's what Watts railed against. Okay, you've got to take a wider view of this thing, because
I
it's
don't
not,
have to, just because Alan Watts wants to say that Buddhism isn't a religion doesn't mean that it's not a religion. There's all sorts of stuff in Buddhism that most certainly counts as religion, and it also depends. I'll be fair and grant you that it does depend to some extent on how you're defining that term religion. You could take a very broad perspective on how you understand that, or a very narrow perspective. But even if you took like either the broadest or the narrowest perspective, Buddhism would count depending on what sect you're talking about. So if you want to take a very broad perspective of what religion is, where it's just basically like a philosophy of life that includes certain values that furnish your life with meaning, that would, I think, be a very broad perspective of religion. Buddhism would count. But if you took a very narrow perspective on what religion is, where it has like all sorts of doctrines about the afterlife and God and the supernatural and heaven and hell and stuff like that, there are various sects of Buddhism that include all of those things. So Buddhism would count irrespective. And if Alan wants to cry and play his violin and say, oh, that's a westernization of Buddhism, no, it's a long-standing tradition in the East. So I don't think that counts.
Well, didn't a lot of Buddhist philosophy, doesn't it promote following a religion? Because one of the paths on the Eightfold Path is like right practice, and they encourage people to be involved in a religion, just as one of the steps on the way to enlightenment.
yeah, if that's your choice, if that's what you want to do, is pursue enlightenment. But only monks do that normally. I mean, normal people that follow the wisdom of Buddhism aren't going to be fasting and fucking doing all this bullshit. I mean, and there's there are probably 10 times many sects of Buddhism and Hinduism as there are Christianity, and different different views on it. Watts talked about what the hell was it? Mahayana, a path where you immerse yourself in life and desire and basically drunkenness and whatever in order to live your life, because it doesn't fucking matter. He has a book called "Does It Matter?" because it doesn't fucking matter if you're enlightened or you're not enlightened. And you've got to reach into that. Like, okay, there's a difference between having a desire and obsessing over having a desire and devoting your life to fulfilling your desire, right? And that's kind of what they're railing against.
Yeah, so I don't think that you could plausibly say that you have a desire for something, and yet you don't have any interest at all in pursuing it or fulfilling it, and that it doesn't take up part of your mental life. You could say and the appropriateness of the level of intensity will depend on the importance of the desire to you. So, I mean, I don't understand how you would be able to really quantify how sensible it is for you to be obsessing, quote unquote, for the fulfillment of a desire. You could probably do that in a sensible way if you're talking about the nature of humankind and what it is that we naturally require or want as a human being. But I would argue that when you do that, when you take a look at the kind of creature that we are, you would end up with a picture where we would be obsessing over certain very fundamental desires that are linked to our basic instinctual nature. And this would also get into this distinction you were trying to draw before about desire versus rationality. And I don't think that kind of pure dichotomy makes any sense at all. We talked about this a little last time too, about how the Stoics do the exact same thing, where you have this higher human nature and then a lower animal nature and then a very base nature. And they say, well, it's okay if you want to pursue a desire that's correspondent to your animal nature, but only insofar as it doesn't violate your higher human nature. And I think that that's all just bollocks. It's bollocks because there's no true divide between rationality and desire. Your desires are what motivate your use of rationality, and your rationality is what clears the way and illumines the path toward the fulfillment of your desires. And trying to have this dichotomy where they're at odds with one another or one trumps the other is just going to lead to disaster in your life. It's basically going to drive a wedge between your mental life and your bodily cravings and basically create a disunity in your person.
Okay. Okay, there is no clear divide between your rationality and desire, but there's certainly a gradient. There's certainly different systems involved. And I basically have had desires or suffering or whatever and completely dissociated my rational brain from it. And I do it all the time. I had to learn how to do it, but I do it all the time. And it's pretty clear to me what's going on. I understand the difference between cogitating on something and bringing it up in my working memory over and over again. Like if I'm angry at somebody, I mean, I can choose to just let that go and be angry in the moment, and the anger dissipates within about 2 minutes. And as long as you're not relighting it up with your rational mind. So your rational mind basically is your thinking or thought, your stepping mind, the mind that steps through thoughts. That's what I would call your rational mind, right? So that's the thing that cogitates and steps through thoughts. You have control over that. You can shut that fucker off. It's a good tool. It's a great tool if you got to figure something out, like how to build a shelf, how to walk across the room, or how to make a sandwich. Actually, hardly even use it to make a sandwich anymore. I just seem to make them. But I think that's what they're talking about in Buddhism. They're not talking about getting rid of your desires or suppressing your basal animal self. They're talking about letting those things blossom by themselves and just exist as they should without aggravating them with culture and with language and with what they call karma. Okay, karma means habit. Karma is this karmic wheel of constantly thinking the same thought over and over again, and cogitating on something and dwelling on something. Like I have dealt with my depression by not feeling or not rationally saying that I'm depressed. I just endure the depression as a bodily function. And I don't, and it goes away a lot faster now. It used to take like 2 weeks. Now it goes away in about 6 hours, a day. And
So you don't.
So there's a hell of a lot to unpack here. And you have to be careful that it all relates to what a brain can do and can't do, right? So we have to know what a brain can do and can't do. And we have to look at the structures of the brain that does those things. And from there, we can start to decide how we can actually have some control over what our brain does on its day off.
So you would say, would you like to continue? Did you have a further thought there before I dive into some clarifying questions?
No thoughts. I don't have any thoughts anymore.
Okay, I just didn't want to interrupt you. I just wanted to ask, so you were talking about depression, right? And how instead of trying to eliminate that depression, you just go through it. You just experience it. But see, I mean, that goes totally at odds with everything that I've ever learned about Buddhism. They want you to focus mindfully on getting rid of certain things in your mental life that's causing that suffering. The whole point about Buddhism, going far and wide, like all sorts of different sects, irrespective of what you're talking about, is the elimination of suffering. That's their big thing. That's what they want to get to. And the way that you do that is, again, going through the whole thing about detachment, getting rid of certain desires, because you have to recognize the idea of sunyata, emptiness, and the emptiness of emptiness, because everything that you see is ultimately transient and not real. this gets into the whole mereological nihilism thing. And because it's not really real, you shouldn't be attached to it. It's folly. It's ridiculous. And once you realize that quote unquote truth about the world, you will be now enlightened and you won't be attached to these things anymore. And that is what's common about Buddhism, not this idea of actually going through the suffering. That's contrary to everything that I've ever learned about Buddhist philosophy. So I would just ask you, like, you gave the example of Alan Watts before, but he's a person that we're disagreeing over how to interpret what he's saying. So could you give me an alternative example of a different Buddhist philosopher who would suggest interpreting things or the kind of philosophy that you're talking about, like in this way? Could you name somebody else other than the person that we're disagreeing with right now?
Not anymore. Maybe Ram Dass, maybe Baba Ram Dass, but he's dead. And let's see, who else? I can't think of any. I don't really have any heroes in that field other than Watts. I just took all my leads from Watts. So,
I mean, the whole so it's interesting because the whole like drinking oneself to death kind of thing that you were talking about before, I find that's really common amongst the Buddhists, the quote unquote Buddhists in the West, is where they talk about this. And you're saying that he doesn't. I'm coming across lectures that strongly suggest that he does. But talking about this whole detachment thing, you have all these people in the West talking about, enlightenment and getting rid of attachments and things like that. But then they turn around and they live this hedonistic lifestyle. And I see that very frequently amongst Western Buddhists, particularly amongst my generation and the hipster crowd, when everybody wants to give credit to Buddhism and stuff, and then they turn around, these quote unquote sages turn around and then they drink themselves to death on Friday and Saturday night. So,
well, maybe the ones that get it do that. Like if you bought Watts a couple of fine bottles of wine and set them in front of a bunch of pretty girls and wound them up, he'd say a whole lot of shit. That's why he has so many recordings. But I mean, it wasn't exactly a monk. I mean, he was anything but.
Clearly,
and he reveled in it.
Yeah, and I mean, like that's sounds pretty standard for Western kinds of Buddhism, not ideologically speaking, but practically speaking, how many Western quote unquote Buddhists live their life. But yeah, so I mean, like. We were talking about rationality and desire and distinctions before, but maybe now let's step into this whole mereological nihilism thing. This idea
what is that exactly? What
is it?
Yeah, what is it?
So for mereological nihilism, you're talking about this idea that the whole is ultimately illusory. Mereology dealing with the relationship between parts and the whole and its parts. And so with mereological nihilism, it's the idea that the whole does not exist. It's illusory. It's just the chair doesn't exist. It's just certain particles that are arranging themselves chair-wise. The coffee pot in front of me does not really exist. It's just particles arranging themselves coffee pot-wise. You could find language like this used by philosophers like Trenton Merricks and other people. Which is just another way of expressing this idea of sunyata or emptiness, that things are empty of their inherent existence, which is just a way of saying that nothing is really permanent, nothing is eternal. But
it isn't.
Yes, of course it's not eternal, but it doesn't matter. That has absolutely no bearing on whether or not it actually exists. If the constituents themselves exist, which you're either going to end up saying that nothing exists or at least something exists, which would be like some kind of base particles or fields or energy or whatever it is you want to grant that actually does exist. And insofar as those parts exist, there's no rational argument to get from adding one thing that exists to another thing that exists to another thing that exists and adding up things that exist, and the thing that you end up with is a fiction. How do you add up one real thing to the second real thing, to the third real thing, and end up with something imaginary?
Okay. Yeah, I'm all about objects and but they're a hierarchy, of things, right? I mean, all things are like that. There are things in space and time, and they're temporary. They change constantly, and you can pick out an object. But I mean, I don't see a problem with picking out an object and saying that the object has parts or whatever, and that it exists. Wouldn't. I mean, that's far from what I would subscribe to. In fact, I love fucking objects. Object-oriented philosophy is kind of my thing.
Well, I think
the richness in the existence of objects and how they flow backwards in time from the very moment that they were created, and they carry with them all of those remnants, right? So they coalesce into an object, and but then objects are part of other objects, and they're flowing, and it's all very dynamic, and I don't see a problem with any of that. But these mereological nihilists are trying to say something. Like you said something about Immutable being a mereological nihilist. At what point did you accuse him of that?
So, well, I didn't mention him by name, but I did hear him. I think it was like last night when he was talking to you. He said, at least in the chat, that he's like 90% confident in mereological nihilism, and also Danny is a mereological nihilist. And it's just like, nah, bro. I'm sorry, that shit just makes no sense.
No composite material objects. That seems like a pretty fucking weird claim for a biochemist.
It's just, the whole thing, the founding like assumption for the vast majority of arguments that I hear from mereological nihilism is this eternalist requirement that if it doesn't exist forever, it doesn't exist at all.
That sounds like a Christian.
Exactly. That's why I'm harping about how all of this stuff is just your run-of-the-mill standard religionist bullshit, because they all say the same crap, but it doesn't make any friggin' sense. You're not, like, my criticism again is that how is it that you're going to add a number of things that actually do exist together, and the thing that you end up with is imaginary? If all of the parts that make up the thing in question are real, how is it that you get something imaginary at the end of that? Even if it doesn't last forever, it doesn't matter. And likewise, it doesn't matter in relation to, here I'm seeing Immutable Destiny saying the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. He should flesh that out a little bit. Yeah, the problem of the one and the many and everything like that, it has to do with the fuzziness of composite objects. But that it's all it is just pointing out that there's a fuzziness.
Look what Danny says. I haven't heard you
give an argument against the position. Yeah. Of course not, because he doesn't want to hear it. And then when he comes into the chat room, when he comes in here, and he'll say he doesn't understand what that means, even though I think I've been very clear about what I mean. So what's going on here, though, in terms of value, is they'll say, oh, well, it doesn't last forever, so why should you be attached to it? I don't give a damn that it doesn't last forever. I don't last forever either. It doesn't matter. I don't care whether or not something lasts for all of eternity. If it's good and it gives me a decent feeling of pleasure as I'm participating in it, that is perfectly fine for me. It's like, to give a run-of-the-mill example, imagine that you get yourself like a new PlayStation or Xbox, and some sage Buddhist monk comes up to you and says, well, that thing isn't going to last forever, so you might as well throw it into the garbage. And you're going to say, no, like, even though it's going to break someday, it's brand new right now. And for the time that it lasts, I'm going to enjoy the hell out of playing all the games that I enjoy playing. And there's absolutely nothing wrong in engaging in that practice. And it's completely irrational to take that new system that you have and throw it into the trash because someday in the future, it's not going to work anymore. It works right now. So live it up and enjoy it for what it is right now.
Okay, I just want to say two things. First of all, Danny wants to come in. He's saying, let me in. Wasn't there a movie called Let Me In where she certainly couldn't have let him in?
It's a vampire movie. I think it's very apropos. Danny, yeah, we can definitely talk about this nonsense that you believe in at some point. I said when I came in here that I had to go soon. If you want to have like a 10-minute conversation, we can do that. But as of when it hits 10, I'm going to give this like 10 more minutes. So if you want to come in.
Okay. The second thing I want to say to the Death Soul is all the stuff you've said about Buddhism and Ellen Watts just makes my skin crawl away because it is so totally the opposite of how I embrace this. So I'm pretty much. I think
So
I'm
that-
probably. I probably
think that you
agree with
should,
you totally, but
uh-huh.
but I approach Buddhism in an entirely different way than what you're talking. You're talking about
Well,
like
then
a
you're giving it
a
far too much
Christian
credit.
monstrosity of I can't see it. So there's a lot
Yeah,
to
well,
unpack.
well, then you're giving it way too much credit. I mean, just read any
Oh, no,
introductory
no.
book. Read any introductory book on Buddhism, Speed. I mean, like they're all going to say the
Oh
exact same
no,
thing.
I would never fucking read a book about Buddhism. That's just the dumbest idea ever.
Of course
Never
not.
do that. Never do
But
that.
why would you try to? Why would you try to like read any of the religious texts of Buddhism? Of course, it's going to have nothing to teach you about what it
Yeah,
actually says.
I just read Ellen Watts. I mean, fuck Buddhism. You know, it's like I don't know. It's just I'm not doing it, man. I'm not reading that shit. Well, for one thing, I tried reading some of their shit. It's just fucking ridiculous. I mean,
So I mean, I just don't understand. I don't understand. You know, like you have a very different perspective on what Buddhism is. It is a very unique way of looking at Buddhism because I'll be honest with you, Speed. I've never heard Buddhism construed in the way that you've discussed it before, and I'm not coming at this like in a vacuum or anything.
Okay,
I've taken plenty of like college courses on Buddhism and Eastern philosophy. I've read many books by the classical Buddhist philosophers like Shantideva and Nagarjuna. You know, I've taken a look at modern philosophers who defend Buddhism, like, for example, Charles Goodman from Binghamton University gives a modern defense of Buddhist ethics that you can find. And I've gone through all of this material, and it's all very fundamental and ubiquitous.
That's why I have to go in 2 minutes, too.
Everything that I came up with is from Ellen Watts. Everything that I came up with is directly from Ellen Watts. So that's my approach. So that's interesting that you read Watts in an entirely different manner than I do. And I don't know.
I would be interested, Speed, if you could email me, and Danny, yeah, we'll definitely try to have like a quick conversation about this in a second. The last thing I want to say to Speed is if you could do me a favor and email me certain maybe lectures or just reference me to certain books where Alan Watts says the specific things that you know you are concentrating on here, so that way I could be exposed to what it is that you're saying and how you're interpreting things. Because you know I've also been going through a bunch of Watts, and like I said, I mean it seems very run-of-the-mill standard bullcrap. He tries to paint it in different ways, so that way he can get his little wedge in there. But nevertheless, it's all the same standard tropes. So if you would just reference me to something in email, I'll definitely check up on it. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go through his books. I haven't since I was, like in my 20s, but I just tripped on the stack of Watts books this morning. So I know where they are. I'll take a look. Okay.
Dessel, what is it that you are rejecting exactly? Like, what do you take mereological nihilism to be in the first place?
So I defined it right at the beginning of this conversation, mereology being the study of the relationship between whole and its parts, a whole and its parts, and mereological nihilism being ultimately the claim that the whole is not truly in existence.
Maybe what I'm about to say is kind of matches that, but I'm just going to phrase it differently for clarity. I just think that part-whole relations are mental.
Ooh.
Okay, so part-whole relations are mental in the sense that, like, the demarcations that you come up with are simply mental concepts, that they don't exist in reality.
Yeah, like if you're saying that hydrogen is part of water, that the truth conditions involve agency there.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that would be like another thing that I think is pretty strongly related to the thesis that I'm criticizing, because if it's just mental, it's not really a part of existence per se. And so it would be like.
But the simples exist. The simples exist.
Exactly. Right. Yes, the simples exist, but the whole would be just a mental concept.
Well, if you construe a whole in terms of parts, then yeah, the idea is that what makes X a part of an object or a part of Y is that I don't see there being a way of saying that X is not a part of Y.
So hold on there, because that just confused the hell out of me, because what's going on here is, like, I'm saying as a mereological realist that if Y is a part of X, that, you know, and take like a set of things, like take instead of doing Y, which would be one characteristic, take a set like 1 through N set of things being parts of quote unquote X, where X could be real or it could just be a mental concept. Now, if the parts actually exist, and if they are in fact organized in a certain way, and the relation between them is actually occurring, that's where my criticism lies, because you can't take a bunch of things that are real and then come up with something at the end of that that's imaginary. How do you
I'm
add
not
in?
really understanding. I'm just look. I'm not saying there's a sense in which we can say parts are real.
That, Danny. I called that right at the beginning. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm about to explain why it doesn't make sense, because there's a sense in which parts are real, the simples are real, but when you invoke a part, you're invoking a relational property. You're not invoking a substance.
So there is no substance at all?
When the relation that establishes a part is not itself, by definition, in virtue of being a relation, is not a substance.
I'm asking you though, are there substances that actually exist?
Well, if we take substances to be simples, yes.
Okay, so there are things that exist. Yes,
Of
simples, not composite. Okay, good. So that's our first thing, is that there are simples that exist. Now, these simples, do they actually interact with each other, or is that just a mental concept and imaginary?
What do you mean interact?
Do they have relationships with each other, in the sense that do they organize with each other? Do they have interactions? Are there actual, for example, you used the example of water before, and you were talking about hydrogen. So hydrogen and oxygen, these things, would you say that they interact with each other in any way whatsoever? Is their interaction real?
Yeah, I think there are certain relational properties that are real.
Okay, so the simples exist and they're real, and the relationships between them, they are real. And
Not
so
all.
when you just got done saying that.
I said there are, look, listen to what I'm saying, man. Like, I'm saying that there are certain relations that are real. Not all relations are real.
So, okay, I didn't say that you said all relations are real. I'm simply going with the fact that you did just affirm that relations exist, that at least some relations are real.
Yes.
Did you not? You just got done saying that. Right.
But
so I don't understand.
Sure that you understand me.
You just acted like that was a
sure that you understand me. That's all. Because the way
like
you characterize me,
what's going on?
Right. Yeah. So like, don't pretend as if there's a straw man here when there's not. I didn't say.
I didn't call you. I didn't say you were straw manning me. I was making sure we were clear.
You just did. Yes, you did, because you said no. I wasn't saying that, and then it turned out that you did. Right.
Look,
you just said that I was misrepresenting your position, and you were like, "Oh, listen to what I'm saying." I did listen to what you said. What you just did was misconstrue my explanation of what you were saying. So let's go back to what you were saying.
Right. I'm just making sure we're clear.
Simple things exist. And there are some relations between those things that exist. Did Danny, did you just get bounced?
Yeah,
he kicked me. Yeah, he's still mad about yesterday, probably.
No, you were over talking, and I'm gonna bounce you.
He was over talking too.
Yeah,
well, sorry, I can only bounce one of you at a time. So
you would choose me because you're angry at me and not angry at Dessel.
No, it's just Danny. I think you're a weenie. That's why I bounced you.
Look, just step outside of the conversation for a second. Go ahead and finish Dessel.
Okay.
I appreciate Speed trying to help me out here with this, but I'm definitely just as guilty as Danny right now in terms of like speaking while the other person is talking. It's just I don't want to let Danny get away with anything, because that's something you really like to do, Danny, is just convolute the shit out of stuff in order to try to get some pointless point across. So like, what's going on here? We just established that simples exist, and we established that there are real relations between things. Not every relation is real, according to Danny, but there are at least some that are legitimately real. And so, but as far as it goes, what is a whole? What is it if not a relationship amongst simples. Could
Wait,
you
what
give
the
me an
fuck is that?
example?
What is a simple?
A simple would be something that's
I
not
agree
a
with you,
complex
Jesse.
object.
Think
A
of like
what?
if a fundamental particle speed, like that might be a simple.
A quark. A quark.
Yeah, and if that's comprised of parts, right, then those are going to be the simples, right?
Yeah,
And
we
then you
have
can go
phony
on and on.
parts. We have
Right.
phony parts. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so you're asking for an example of a relation that's real that doesn't constitute a part?
No, I'm asking you if we're granting, as you just did, that there are simples and there is also real relations amongst simples. What is a whole if it is not exactly that? Relations amongst simples. Because what are composites? They are simply relations amongst simples. That's all a composite is. And so if you're granting the two
I think what I
premises,
asked was
you
accurate.
end up in mereological nihilism. You end up in mereological realism, rather. You just granted the two crucial premises to get you there.
No, I don't. I take that. I take things like I'm shorter than you to be some kind of real relation that's not a simple, okay, and not an object, but to be a kind of actual relation, okay, that doesn't constitute a composite.
So, but you in fact are a composite, and so is the other person that you're making a comparison to. And the relationship that you're describing in terms of height is something that is a relation between two composites that are composed of simples. So you could break that down in exactly the same way. It's not something that, that doesn't get you out of the problem at all. That actually illustrates exactly what's at issue
I just
here.
gave you an example.
The height thing, the problem of height would actually illustrate the whole point, which is that you really are shorter than the other person who's 6'1". But the only reason why you are is because the simples are arranged in such a way in you as to get to a certain height, and the simples are arranged in the other person in such a way to get to a greater height. And so when you compare the two organizations of simples, you come up with a difference relation, and that difference relation is real because of the simples and their organizations are real.
But those organizations are construed mentally. So I construe myself to be a certain height.
So, okay,
well,
so hold on. No, because the whole thing is the relations that, first of all, the relations, we're going into a situation where you're claiming that there is no relation, even though before you had granted that there are certain relations that are real. But now you're trying to say that in this particular example, the relation would not be real, which would not go along the lines that we were going before where we had previously agreed. But even so, let's take your example because it is a real relationship. Because as far as it goes, the particles that compose the both of you are real. The relationship that where the organization of those simple particles amongst each other, those would be real, or do they not exist? Do the particles that constitute you, do they not actually interact with one another in such a way that they organize you?
Yeah, my body, the way I construe my body, that's going to be mental. So the point is that if I take a certain height, that's only in virtue of me cutting up the world or in a way where my body's a certain height.
Okay, so basically that comes down to like some kind of denial of either the simples that would constitute you or the organization of those simples into you. So What is it exactly would you deny is real about the simples of the organization? Like you don't want to deny that the particles that constitute you are real, because you said that before, right? About quarks and the simples and everything like that. And those things are real. And then the organization though, like the actual attraction of these particles to one another to form things. Why is that fictional? Why would you regard that as something that's not real? Like you're talking about things like the strong force and the weak force and electromagnetism.
Remember,
and stuff. What I'm denying in terms of like the particles interacting, and those are the things that help to form you. So why are they fictional then?
Look, what relation do you think I think is fictional?
You were just saying that there's something about you that's simply a mental concept, but clearly it's not just, the mental concept would not be the fundamental particles that comprise you. It would have to be something in the organization and relationship amongst those simples that would be fictional in some way. So this would get into like questioning the reality of things like the strong force and the weak force and electromagnetism and stuff, all these fundamental interactions.
But those things, right? Like those sorts of relations are not ones that involve like established part-whole relations.
Those things do come together to form all of the interactions that we see between the simple particles that constitute you.
But that isn't a sufficient condition for part-wholes.
I would suggest that it most certainly is, because what is a composite if it is not a series of simples that relate to one another in some way? Composites are what? Just a congregation of simples, and that congregation is an organization or a relationship. That is what allows for the formation of these composites, is that you have the simples that they're composed of, and these simples are interacting or organizing in a particular way. So if you're going to critique,
mereological nihilist is not denying relations, right? That's that. Look, like take a mereological nihilist like Peter Vandenwagen. He thinks that there are no chairs, there are things that are arranged chair-wise. Now that establishes relation. What?
Yeah, and that establishes itself in terms of like organizing itself chair-wise. But the whole thing is that, again, the only way that you can make sense of that is to try to assume an eternalist condition to the reality of the chair, because it's only chair-wise. We don't get to consider the chair to be a real thing, because at some point it's going to change. At some point the organization is going to change, which is why the simples and the relationship, their organization, the chair-wise organization, doesn't get you to a chair. Well, why not? The only way that you could do that is by some kind of implicit assumption that this organization has to last forever.
Well, I don't understand that.
Of
like,
course
are you saying
don't.
that?
No.
Look, do you see the distinction between a chair and a thing arranged chair-wise?
No.
Okay, well then you're a mereological nihilist.
If you're talking about particles and interactions such that when they organize themselves, they organize themselves into a chair. I'm not agreeing with you in terms of your nihilism. I'm certainly saying that there is such a thing as the chair. Is that what you're saying? If that's what you're saying, then we agree.
Look, a mereological nihilist has the right to say there's a chair in the room. No one is disagreeing that there's a chair in the room. Where the disagreement is, what are the truth conditions for there being a chair in the room?
No, the nihilist is denying that there's a chair in the room. The nihilist can only say there's something that is a shape of the chair we imagine.
Exactly.
Well, that's what they mean by a chair.
Oh, well, that's not what the realists mean.
Yeah, but I'm saying the proposition is agreed upon. The utterance is agreed. It's just the truth conditions are going to be different.
So look, I've set myself at a 10-minute limit here, but we're going on 22 minutes now. Danny, let us take up this conversation again at a later time. But for now, I have to go into town. I've got a bunch of chores that I have to do. But yeah, suffice to say that I hope at least that I'm now clearer to you, Danny, about where I'm coming from in terms of the mereology thing. Even if we disagree, I hope that you can at least understand a little bit more clearly now what my gripes are. And we can get into it again more a little later. So thank you for hosting this conversation, Speed. Thanks, Danny, for your input. Cerberus, Scott, everybody. So y'all have a good day, and I'll catch up with you soon.
Yep.
See you.
Ciao.
Now, what I will not do is what Speed usually does and starts talking shit behind his back.
I'm going to return my chair to the store because I only think it's a chair. It's not the chair I bought. I wanted a real chair.
That's incoherent on a mereological view, a nihilistic view.
I don't even know why it matters.
Well, it matters to me. I want a real chair.
Are you a realist about meaning there?
I mean the debate between the nihilist position and the realist position here.
Seems pretty mild.
What do you mean by matters?
I don't even think it's mild.
But-
I think it has no bearing on anything.
Well, that's just is that like is that like some kind of agent centered truth? Like, does that depend on your psychology or something?
It depends on a lot of things, psychology, I think. But,
yeah, it depends. Does it depend on your psychology?
But it's more dependent on convincing me or not. Right. Yeah, that's the only thing I'm interested in.
I don't really care about your psychology with respect
But
to the conversation.
Can you point to one instance in which it will matter which one of those positions are true?
Sure, I care about it.
Okay, that's all though. Is there anything else?
Right. Yeah, that's all there could be. I'm not a realist about mattering. Are you?
Realist about mattering.
Yeah. Are you are you a realist about what's important and what's interesting?
Well, important and interesting. I mean, I think I do find things that are interesting. So yeah, I guess it is real.
Okay, so is it a perceptual thing or something that you can infer?
I don't think there's anything about me that isn't real.
I'm not disputing that. Are you saying that importance is a real property?
Then any kind of perception or imagination or feeling I have is real. It follows from that.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that. What I'm disputing is whether you think Okay, if you think that the truth conditions or for the way you come to know whether something's important, is that inferential or is it perceptual?
I think it can be both.
Okay, so do you infer or perceive the importance of the conversation?
I would say actually both. It's not like
okay. Well, then you're misperceiving. And what was your inference?
I mean, you're free to think is misperceiving. I don't think it is.
Yeah, but you also inferred. So what was the inference?
The inference you mean as in like a logical deduction, not deduction, but inference, and like an argument.
Yeah.
Oh no, I didn't form an argument.
Well, then there's no inference.
No, I just inferenced.
This feels like pedantry, to be honest. What the fuck is it even argument?
I take an inference to take. I just take an inference to be some set of propositions in which establish a conclusion.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, what were the propositions that you used to make the inference?
In this case, when I say inference, I mean it made me think a thing. I inferred something based on how it made me feel.
Oh, okay. So there's no disagreement then. I think I like it. You dislike the conversation. End of story.
No, it's not dislike the conversation.
Well, what else could it be but your feelings, right?
I don't see any actual impact on anything between the two positions.
What do you mean by actual impact? As opposed to just impact.
If I'm going out into the world and doing something, how is this actually going to affect the way in which
you're asking me a question? Answer my question.
I'm interested in my question. How is
you don't know the answer to my question?
Great. I don't know. I didn't even hear it. Right. I don't care about your question. I care about my question.
Here. I'll answer your question. I'll extend to you the charity that you won't extend to me. What's your question?
So my question is, how is either one of these positions going to impact how I do anything?
How you do anything?
Yeah. Or anyone else in the room.
You have self-knowledge. I don't have knowledge of your internal states.
Or anyone else in the room. Or even you, other than caring.
Wait, but I take importance to be a function of motivation.
Oh, okay.
I'm so fucking confused right now. Holy shit.
What do you mean by importance otherwise?
I mean, unless I can hear where it's going to make a difference other than caring, then I'm going to stick to my position.
Yeah,
it literally doesn't matter.
A different look. But you see, to say that it makes a difference in my life implies that there's motivation. So you're just saying, how is it going to make a difference in my life? Which is to say, what sorts of motivations will there be such that my life is different? But then you can't appeal to motivations.
If you went forward thinking one over the other, how is it actually going to change anything that you do?
Anything that I like, how I act. I might teach a particular way rather than not.
You might teach the nihilistic point of view over the realist point of view. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Is that all?
Well, that's just one. There are probably other things. But yeah, I answered your question, which is exactly what you did when I asked my question.
Yeah, I have no interest in answering any of those questions.
Sit back down and.
Yeah, I don't actually care if you want to argue about what is meaning or purpose, right?
Okay.
What is
okay. Sir, sorry, I had to step in. Danny, You do not get to tell anyone else to sit down. Okay?
I don't know what you mean.
Stop. Fuck you. Seriously.
Look, as far as I'm concerned, as long as Danny says he exists, then he's not a nihilist. And if he says he doesn't exist, there's no point in arguing with him.
You're not understanding the mere logical nihilistic point.
No,
I
just don't care.
Okay, well, let me explain it for the rest of the room so they're not misinformed, okay, or the viewers. Mereological nihilism.
I sit here and listen to it. What do you mean?
Excuse me, sir. You don't care. Remember, sit back down.
I don't care what you think.
Sit down. You can sit down now. You don't care. Remember, do I have to remind you your own beliefs?
You're gonna have to deal with me.
Okay, well then I'll answer your question. Do you have anything to say?
No, I was just pointing out that everyone in here has already listened to the positions on multiple days.
Yeah, but I'm just correcting your construal of the position.
I didn't say the position was anything other than pointless.
I didn't
actually change the definition of what the position is.
You're saying that the position implied that I don't exist.
Did I?
Right.
I said as long as you say you exist, then
I'm not a nihilist. So by modus
ponens,
if I'm a nihilist, then I don't exist.
No, then I'm saying then I wouldn't consider you a nihilist. And if you say you don't exist, then arguing if you doesn't matter.
There's a difference between nihilism and mereological nihilism. Big difference.
Yeah, but we're talking about mereological nihilism.
Right. So
I just don't feel like saying all the syllables.
If you look, I was granting you charity in the sense that if it's just nihilism, I would totally agree with you.
Really?
Okay?
Were you
but if you're talking about mereological nihilism, it doesn't follow that. If I don't exist before I'm mereological nihilist.
How does it matter? And you wanted to define what matter meant as if you didn't have no clue.
Well, I just didn't know what you meant because what the truth conditions for mattering relies on people's psychology.
Yeah, I was asking you though, which means it relies on your psychology.
No, that was later. Initially, you said I don't see the point of the conversation.
What does it matter? Is a question towards you.
Yeah, I just took that to be an indirect speech act. Like when I asked my student, could you open the door? That's just to suppose to demand that they open the door.
Now you are informed that the question was directed at you, which means it really doesn't matter what I thought matter meant. It matters what.
No, I'm just accusing you of being dishonest because you actually think that it doesn't have an impact.
It doesn't matter to me, or really, I think anyone else in here if you think I'm dishonest.
Okay.
I mean, look. No, hold on. Serb, Serb can be trollish, but I don't think he's dishonest. Okay.
Well, I think he is. But anyways, moving on.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, it did. Let me just correct Service while he's quiet and sat down. Okay.
I'm interested in what I said wrong.
You can think that you exist, right? But you don't consist of parts.
It's so cute how you try to assert yourself.
Excuse me, sir. Excuse me. Okay. You can think you're a mereological nihilist and think that you exist.
Is that all? All I'm saying is...
that's what I was correcting you on.
As long as you say you exist, I don't care. I think it becomes pointless.
Yeah, but you were suggesting that it was...
That's literally what I said. And that's what I think. That's what I think everyone else should consider it, because it's pointless.
Yeah, I'm just saying that your existence is compatible with my mereological nihilism because I think the way you exist is not in terms of part-whole relations.
That's fine. That's literally, I wasn't even talking about the position. That's why I was trying to point out to you, you're repeating a position that everyone in here knows. And I didn't even say anything about it other than I find it pointless. And this is how I'm going to treat it.
I really don't understand anything that you've been saying then.
Oh, Danny, hold on. This is actually funny because because every time Danny hears something he doesn't like, he claims he doesn't understand it. I know this is an earth-shattering revelation because it's been mentioned before, but it needs to be mentioned again.
Which is why I don't explain it to him.
Well, I know, I wanted to
confusing.
Yeah, true, sir. But you know what? I wanted to put it out there again because it warrants it repeating for others.
Are y'all actually going to bring a real disagreement up, or are you just going to talk about
what disagreement in these positions would matter?
What was the question?
How is it going to change anything if either one of these are true and the other one's false?
Okay, I have a quick question for Danny. Are you going to stop trying to attempt to be macho and just have a conversation?
I am trying to have a conversation. I don't know what you mean by macho.
Well, it doesn't really seem like, right? You're coming in here, just like telling Zeb to sit down, sit down.
I
I'm
guess
trying
you're
to
just
teach you
demonstrating
something.
the apparent ultimate distinction, right?
Holy fucking shit! Never mind.
I got
Anyways, does anybody want to present anything that they want to disagree with me about instead of just like talk about my psychology or something?
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's what I thought.
I mean, the only thing I
you see,
disagree
that's
with
what
you
I'm
on.
talking about. That is what I'm talking about. You just proved my fucking point.
The only thing I
Anybody
disagree
else?
with you on is how important you think it is.
What does it mean to disagree on value?
And we mean this means we think it has different values. What do you mean?
Yeah,
God damn
but
it!
look,
I
we can
love
have
this.
different beliefs. Doesn't mean that we disagree.
I mean, it literally can mean that.
But the thing is that that's not a sufficient condition for disagreement. The fact that we
You're right.
differently
There has to be opposing
look,
beliefs.
I value. Excuse me, sir. You're interrupting. If I value being a lawyer and you value being a doctor, are we disagreeing?
Yeah.
If I
think we
value a
actually probably
conversation
are.
and you don't
But
value a
that's literally
conversation, does that mean
apples
we're
and
disagreeing?
oranges.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
literally
other
apples and
than
oranges.
other than it's not analogous to what we're talking about, I think we are actually disagreeing
What is the
Right.
proposition that we're disagreeing about?
about what is most important.
Okay, I'm saying that this is important to me. Are you disagreeing with
Yeah.
that proposition?
Well, I have no idea what's actually important because I'm not psychic.
I just told you. It is
Okay.
true that I find these conversations interesting or valuable to me. Are you disagreeing with that?
Disagreeing with how with what you're telling me, I have no way to confirm or deny that.
Okay, so there's no disagreement. So I don't understand where you're saying that we have disagreement.
Oh, it's because you changed the position from saying something is important to saying something is important to me.
That's exactly what I was trying to explain to you. I'm not a realist about value in
Well,
this way.
That I don't. Why did you change the propositions?
Well, the point is that
it's
what
like you're being
importance to me-
dishonest.
excuse me, sir. Look, what I agree, already explained to you. Importance involves one's psychology. Do you remember me saying that to you? Okay, so that means when something's important, it's important to someone.
And you could claim that it's important beyond that.
Well, I'm not a realist, though. This is what we went over.
Okay.
Hang on.
And I was asking whether you were a realist about value, and you said yes. You said you made inferences and you perceive certain things, and then we went over that. But the point is that when you say the conversation is not important, right? On my view, importance always involves value to someone. For you, no. In which case, I don't know what you're talking about because I think importance outside of psychology makes no sense.
But great. All I'm saying is because I'm real, anything about me is real. That's all I said.
That's not all you said. You said
no.
You said something
so
about,
therefore, any sort of feeling or thought or part of me is real.
Part there. That's an equivocation on the part in the sense of like a oxygen to a water molecule, right? I think that there's
I don't know. I don't know what you think I'm equivocating there. You're just claiming that.
Well, let me explain to you, right? If the water, right, on a part-whole relation where the mereological says that the mereological nihilist is going to say that what construes the part-whole relation within a water molecule has to do with the way I divide the world.
But why would I care what a nihilist thinks here?
With the hydrogen, excuse me, let me explain. If the hydrogen were to disappear, it'd be hydroxide, wouldn't be water molecule anymore. So that's to say the sufficient conditions for there being water is that there are at least those three parts, okay? Now, when it comes to minds, it's very different, right? I believe that the square root of 9 is 3, okay? But if I were not to have that belief, I wouldn't lose my mind, okay? So that when I say that belief is a part of my mind, I'm not using that word in the same sense as oxygen is a part of a water molecule, right? There's something else going on there, right? So the mereological nihilist can affirm that sense of part in the sense of intentional state to mind, and disaffirm, that's a word, sorry if it's not, the sort of realist position that hydrogen is a part of water.
Are you going to get to how I'm equivocating?
Yeah, so the part, when we say oxygen is a part of water, that's a different sense of the word as your beliefs and desires are part of you.
Okay, so how am I equivocating?
Do you know the words are being used differently there?
I'm using the words in the same way.
Do you think it's a sufficient condition that oxygen is a part of hydrogen? Oxygen is a part of water?
To make it water, then yeah.
Yes. Do you think it's a sufficient condition that if you value getting on StreamYard, that constitutes your mind?
Well, the value would be a part of it.
Wait,
I'm not.
You're answering a different question. Is it a sufficient condition, okay, that you value getting on StreamYard to constitute the whole of your mind? That's to say, if you did not, okay, so you see how one establishes a sufficient condition for a whole and the other does not.
No, it doesn't, because you said there were multiple things in the first example, hydrogen and oxygen. In the second example, you only said there's one thing that constitutes the other thing.
I'm saying that
you're not being analogous there. You're being dishonest.
The fact that it's not analogous affirms that you're equivocating.
Oxygen alone does not constitute water. When you
no, that's not what I said. You need to pay attention.
When you add oxygen to hydrogen, that constitutes water. So a thought about value alone does not constitute mind, but all the parts of a mind constitutes mind. You have to have all the
parts of a mind. Look, do you understand that all the parts of water, that if they were one part were removed, you lose the whole?
It would. Well, no, you wouldn't lose the whole.
Wait, so what are the parts of water? Wouldn't you say oxygen and two hydrogens for sake of argument?
Yeah, that constitutes a substance in which we call water.
Right. Now, if you were to remove one of those parts, do you still have the whole?
Well, you would have all the parts, but no, they wouldn't be together.
Right. Do you see? That's what I meant by sufficient condition. Okay, that all the parts need to come together in order to have the whole. But that is not true of the mind, right? You can have a web of beliefs, but if you were to remove one of those beliefs, or if they were to change,
if you really get that deep, if you remove one thought from a mind and where in which it had the feeling or thought before and the feeling or thought was removed later, it wouldn't be the same mind.
It wouldn't be. Look, if so, what are the sufficient? So you think that your mind is changing every second?
Literally, yeah, it is.
Do you think that you were being honest 5 minutes ago?
Yes, I do believe that.
Okay, is it the same you as right now?
Don't go down this road, okay? Because it's.
No, we can. I mean, we can acknowledge that we track a personhood or a person through time, even though they change. I'm fine with that.
No, that's not. I'm fine with the water molecule changing. Its relational properties can change, but it's not a different whole every time it changes, right? Just because an object changes doesn't mean that the whole changes.
Well, no, it literally, you have two separate wholes now.
No, look, have you heard of relational properties? We discussed this with Dessel.
You do understand oxygen by itself is a gas, and so is hydrogen? You would have two clouds of gas.
I don't see the relevance. Look,
I'm saying is you would have two separate holes.
You need to respond to the relational issue.
No, I responded in the way I actually needed to.
Okay, let me explain it to you since you don't get it. Okay, if I'm the shortest person in the room,
no?
Yeah, just sit down then and be quiet. I'll explain it to the viewers.
How about this? I get it.
You keep proving my point.
Don't confuse me thinking your point is stupid with me not getting it.
Okay, sit down. Yeah. Let me explain it to the viewers. Okay, here's the thing. If I'm the shortest person in the room,
you're so adorable. So adorable.
If I'm the shortest person,
Speed, are you there?
Foreskin.
Yeah, if I'm the shortest
Speed, if you're there, Danny, sit down for me.
Okay. If I'm the shortest person in the room and someone, excuse me, sir, if I'm the shortest person,
fuck off.
Okay, if I'm the shortest person in the room and someone walks into the room that's taller than me, there's a change. And that change has to do with a relational property, right? So
when
there's
you
a
say
sense
you, what do you mean you?
Excuse me, sir. You sat down, remember? Okay.
No, I actually
Hey, Scott, are you there? Scott.
Yes, I'm here. What's up?
Do you have mod powers at all?
What do you want me to do?
I don't know. Remove
Danny, sit down for a second.
Yeah, sit down.
I mean, if you could.
Yeah, they just want to.
Thank you, Scott. Go ahead.
You can put him back in if you want. I was just. Sit down,
Yeah,
son.
I think that you're more interested in like the antics or something. But the point is that you
Oh,
can
we
change
are.
without.
We
I
are.
am.
You
I
can-
love the antics.
There can be changes without there being changes to the whole. Is that what you're disputing? I gave you a counterexample. What?
I didn't see you give any example in which the whole doesn't change when something about it changes. That makes no
What
sense.
do you think of my room example, or were you not paying attention?
So when the taller guy comes in the room, does your brain state not change?
No, not necessarily.
You don't actually, when you perceive that he's taller than you and that you're shorter than him.
That's immaterial. You may not. You may be
You
blind.
don't
It
think
doesn't matter.
you don't think you gain the thought that you're shorter.
Not necessarily. You're just changing the hypothetical. You may not know that someone in the room walked in. It's still true that you're no longer the shortest person in the room. You're sorry.
Yeah,
you're no
you
longer
might not notice.
Okay, so there's
Right,
an example of change.
No. If no one notices, nothing changes.
Well, you're an idiot then, because it would be true that you're no longer the only person in the room, even though no one noticed.
Propositions or something's only a proposition when someone's meaningfully saying it.
Well, that's even more stupid.
You're free to think it's stupid.
Well, let me examine why. The idea of having different or same beliefs relies on a singular proposition, not two different propositions.
Okay, wait. You tell me right now. Do you think the proposition is the words or the meaning behind the words?
I don't think meaning's constituted by propositions. I think meaning's construed in terms of intention. Okay. And I think that
intention then behind the words.
But intention,
literally a pointless sentence.
Intention has content, propositional content, right? But but the idea is that there's also propositions in which I don't intend to convey, and those are not going to mean anything in the same way.
Okay, so I saw in there nowhere where you're saying the words are the meaning, or the proposition. It's I guess you said intention instead of meaning.
Yeah, you didn't give a true dichotomy there. That was the problem.
I didn't ask you for a yes or no. Yeah,
I'm just telling you I'm a Platonist, right? This is because of this very problem.
Right. So if no one notices, then there can be no intention in a proposition.
No, look, you're confused. Look, let me explain it.
No,
propositions. Yeah, propositions are not mental. Because if they are mental,
you're confusing. No, you're confusing your relationship with the hypothetical if it was real.
Why are you so stupid? Look, propositions.
Why are you so stupid?
I'm going to explain to you why you're stupid. Just give me a second. You were saying that propositions are mental. Okay. The problem with that I was trying to explain to you. What?
I think I very specifically asked you.
Guys, I don't want anybody calling people stupid or whatever. Yeah. And even, Midnight, when you said "fuck you," I think at one point, or to fuck off.
I was just pissed off at Daddy. I apologize.
Let's keep it somewhat neighborly.
Okay, let me just. I'll keep out the name calling. I'll stop being. I'll stop calling you names. Here's the question: do you think propositions are mental or non-mental?
Here's the question. I asked you.
Sure, I'll answer your question.
I asked you. Did you think? Well, you want to say intentional, so I'll change intentional for meaning. I asked you. Is the proposition the intention or is it the actual words? Right. I didn't make a claim on which one it was.
Neither.
So when you stated that I made a claim,
that's not a true dichotomy. I don't think it's neither.
You don't think it's neither.
Sorry, could you repeat your question?
So you don't?
Yeah,
think
I don't think it's neither. That's not a true dichotomy.
You don't think the meaning when writing the words is the proposition. And you don't think the words themselves are the proposition.
I don't think propositions carry meaning in themselves.
Well, that's a very unstandard definition of proposition.
That's a Platonist view. Most philosophers take that view.
Really? I don't think so.
Most people about abstract objects, things like propositions, right, think that all we can say about a proposition is that it establishes or is that which can be true or false. They don't actually mean anything. Really,
I think anytime I've ever looked up proposition or read it in any paper or looked it up in an encyclopedia.
Well, look,
it was always the meaning. It was always
there's
the
different but there's different accounts of meaning. You see, it's an ambiguous word.
I know.
Okay, so when I mean to say something, that's established by my intentional state, not the proposition.
Yeah, you
Okay.
intend to say it.
Right.
You tend to
So
have a meaning.
the proposition is not going to give you what I meant.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, because
So
you're not
understand
actually
that?
communicating the proposition to me. You're communicating the word. I already know this.
Okay. So now the question becomes: do you think propositions are mental or non-mental?
I'm not concerned. I don't think it actually matters whether they are or not.
Wait,
That's
you
why
were
I
making the
asked
claim
you
that
a
they were
question.
mental earlier.
No. I didn't make a claim they were mental. I asked you if you thought intention, because that's the word you want to use. I asked you
No, you
if
said
you thought it was the
wait.
intention or if it was the words.
I thought that you were saying that.
No, I asked you a question.
Okay, what's your question?
Well, you already answered it.
Okay, so where does this get us?
You
I
said
was
that
saying that.
the proposition is not the intention, and it's not the
Okay,
word.
so then let's just go back to the original example, right? You are in a room. You're the only person in the room. That's true of you. Okay.
Is it?
Now someone else walks to the room. You change. You're no longer the only person in the room. You might be the tallest or shortest person in the room, and these are all sets of relational properties. And then we can say that the propositions, the truth conditions of certain propositions change.
Yeah, but that's the thing. I'm not a Platonist, so I'm going to disagree with you.
Do you think that if someone came into the room without you noticing, that it's true that you're not the only person in the room?
What's true? What are we saying is true?
Is it true to say that you're the only person in the room if someone came in the room and y'all both didn't notice that you were in the same room?
You're saying true, so there has to be a proposition. I'm looking for what the proposition, how it exists in this.
That there are two people in the room.
There's two people in the room. Okay, there's two people in the room, but you're saying the proposition.
That's a proposition. There are two people in the room.
But you're saying the proposition. No one in the room saying the proposition.
Right.
So how can anything in the actual example be true when there's no proposition yet?
Wow. Is this real? Like, look, I'm giving you a hypothetical. That's to say a possible world, right? Possible world is construed in terms of propositions. In that world in which there are two people in the room that don't notice each other, would it be true in that world that there are two people in the room?
It would only be true when there's a proposition.
Answer the question.
That's what I said. It would only be true when there's a proposition.
Wait, there are propositions when things are false. Propositions can be false.
Yeah, but I think once there is a proposition that states that, there's adequate information in the room to actually say it's true.
So you do agree then, when two people go in the room, they don't notice each other, that it's true that there are two people in the room?
Wait, is that what I said?
Well, I'm trying to. It's a question.
You didn't postulate that there's an actual proposition in this scenario.
I did.
Yo, you did? Where? You said there are two people in the room. Yeah, but that's you saying a proposition, not that people in the room are having a proposition.
Is it true in that world?
Is it true in that? There has to be a proposition first in the world.
Okay, so then are you saying that propositions are mental or non-mental then? It seems like you're suggesting they're mental.
Suggestions are mental. Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think there's a separation between mental and physical. But yeah, I mean, if you want to say mental,
grant that. No, I can grant that. That's why I'm using the dichotomy between mental and non-mental. This is not a dualism debate. Okay.
Yeah. Does any of them have the proposition?
Wait, are you saying the truth conditions for anything true require someone's beliefs?
I'm saying there has to be a proposition before you can say something is true. Now I'm asking you.
I did utter the proposition. I just gave you the proposition.
I said we could say that it's mental, but now
okay, that means that the truth conditions for something true require mind.
One of them have the proposition.
Right, but you see that's a question that assumes that the truth conditions for there being a proposition is that there's minds.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know we were finding out whether they had minds.
So then the truth conditions for any proposition, right, require a mind.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean there is a proposition about that in them. That's why I'm asking
so you do agree
one of them have it.
Then the truth value is a subjective thing then. You reject the subjective objective distinction.
Do I? Let's see.
Yeah, if you say that look, all propositions are that which can be true or false.
I mean, I would say functionally it is this subjective.
I don't know what non-functionally means.
When we start making assumptions about reality outside of ourselves, then we can claim they're objective.
I don't know what that means.
And act as if they're. That's fine. And act as if they're objective.
I don't know. Look,
I mean,
you're saying that everything is subjective, but we act as if some things are objective. What do you take objective to be?
Well, that's what I'm going to ask you in this hypothetical. Are we assuming that the people in this hypothetical assume that there's an objective reality?
What are you talking about right now?
I'm saying that you're trying to get really deep into philosophy, and
this is really easy. This is not deep. A 5-year-old could answer this.
And your example is woefully inadequate to give you an honest answer.
Okay, let me just ask someone else, and maybe they can help you understand. Scott, are you there?
Wait,
I'm here.
Okay, Scott. Look, listen. This is a very simple question. Look, you're just being obtuse, Scott. Let me look. Pretend. Let's take a hypothetical.
Me understanding that you're not doing this well.
Look. I just want to talk to Scott for a second because
just let. Hold on, Danny. Sir, just let Danny.
Oh, yeah. No. I'm just whenever he's saying that I'm not understanding something. As far as I'm concerned, that the way he's saying it, he's just saying I'm ignorant or stupid.
Yeah, no, I
get that. Whenever he does it, as soon as he stops, then I'll let him talk.
Sir, it's like, you know what? Being called ignorant, but being what?
It's not changing. I mean, just go ahead and say what you want.
Okay,
no,
Scott. Scott, I have a question
here.
Okay, Scott. If there's two people in a room that are unaware of each other, would it be true that there are two people in the room?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Caravis. Let me ask you the same question. Okay. There are two people in a room. They're unaware of each other. Is it true that there are two people in the room?
Okay, wait. Are we in the hypothetical, or are we outside the hypothetical?
This is why you are a horrible interlocutor. You're dishonest.
Are we outside the hypothetical?
Let me go to the bathroom. Maybe Speed and Scott can explain it.
It's really simple. Are we in the hypothetical, or are we just looking at the hypothetical? Are we internal to it, or are we observing it?
I see what you're asking. Right.
Yeah, it's not hard. He's being obtuse.
Yeah, no. Like you right. Like okay, are we having a quote unquote bird's eye view, or are we the two people in the room? That's what you're saying, right?
Well, kind of like because if we're just observing the hypothetical, right, we could have the proposition that there are two people in the room, even though they didn't notice each other, and then we could say it's true. But that doesn't mean that the proposition actually exists in the hypothetical, or that either one of them is aware of what's going on. So you wouldn't say inside the hypothetical that they would think it's true. Right, because there's no proposition.
I'm back. Look, let me ask Andrew. Andrew, I have a question for you.
What's
okay, I have a question for you. Do you think that if there are two people in a room, okay, and they're not aware of each other, in fact, no one else is aware of them, okay, do you think it would be true that there are two people in the room?
Based on my intuition, yeah, I guess so.
But don't forget, his new hypothetical assumes that you're not aware of it either.
Sure.
So then if you're completely unaware of it, how could you know that it's true or not?
Wait, we're talking about that world. We're not talking about this world.
Well, then why are you asking us outside of the hypothetical if it's true or not?
Have you ever? Oh my gosh, this is very basic, man. I really feel like you're being dishonest. Look, let me explain.
You can feel that way.
Excuse me, sir.
You're
look,
really asking us.
Let me explain this to you because you're really behind here.
When you've asked me to talk about the hypothetical,
let me explain your confusion. If I can talk about myself in a different world, right? So I can talk about myself in a different world. So if I said in a world in which I'm married and have kids, that I would enjoy playing with my kids. Okay, I can talk about what's true of that world, and notice that there's a me that I'm talking about. What were you saying, Scott?
I'm sorry, I didn't realize I wasn't muted. I was checking something out here real quick.
That's fine.
The point is that we can talk about possible worlds, and without talking about what we're doing in that possible world, because we're not in that possible world.
Well,
Just
wait.
like,
But
go ahead.
we got to this point because you're claiming we're trying to see if something about them changes, something about the actual situation changes itself, right? If when you're asking me, do I think that it's true, then that's something about me that changed. I'm not in the hypothetical.
What are you talking about? What is it? Look, let me try this again. Okay.
Nothing. If they're unaware in the hypothetical, nothing about them changed.
Okay, then I'm going to give you a clear counterexample. Let's say you're in a room. Okay. You're the shortest person in the room. Then let's say Speed walks into the room. 1 second.
Okay, we're going to put a pin in this discussion after Danny finishes his comment, and then Cerebrus, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, has a chance to reply. Let's not let it be a very long answer, but we have a video here in the last 20 minutes till boomer time that we want to go over.
Oh, y'all want to move on?
Have national review.
Y'all
Yeah,
okay,
we
fine.
can put a pin in it till later this week or next week or whatever if you want to keep on discussing it. But
yeah, that's fine. I mean, I just can't believe he couldn't answer a simple question like that. Everyone else did.
I don't know why you're being so dishonest to think that's what it is. Because you asked me what about them changed, but you're asking me if anything about me changed.
Okay,
Yeah,
moving.
really
Okay, I know.
Right?
Okay,
It is
so
really
it doesn't
embarrassing for you.
Okay, sir, Danny, we have 20 minutes. Okay, let them do the video. I know this is not my channel. I know I'm not the mod, but out of respect for Scott and Speed, let's go to the video.
Oh, we can go to the video. Like I said, I think this is all pointless.
No, I know, but but dude, sir, I've known you long enough to where you can literally argue this for 24 hours if you wanted to.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think I would want to, but okay.
Well, no. I know. You don't want to, but you could if you wanted to. I've known you long enough to know that you could do that.
Yeah, it's real tough when I get more
All right,
specific than the person trying to be specific.
Yeah,
okay,
but
let us know
anyways,
if y'all want to take this up again tomorrow or later in the week or whatever. But right now, let's roll that beautiful bean footage. Speed, if you're there.
yeah.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, are we looking at a video or a paper? No, I'm a little confused. Brainbugs said a paper.
Video with Andrew.
I think you and Brainbug are going over that paper some other time, right?
Okay, but I'm trying to figure out which paper it was. Because
Sorry, Scott. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No problem. It was something about an insect and a plant having some horizontal gene transfer.
Yeah, how long ago did you send me the paper, Brainbug? It should be last evening. Yeah, I'm not seeing it in the last mail. That's why I'm confused.
I do. That sounds like a good paper to get into, but I was thinking it might be more helpful to give Andrew whatever the feedback he's asking for.
Yep. So you were asking about a video, right? And that's different than the paper.
Yeah. Look in private chat.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, I posted the link. It should be set at where they start talking about what I had posted in the chat.
Yeah.
And I think it's pretty revealing about, like, I don't remember some of the parts they said, but from what I recall, it's pretty revealing about what they think about expert testimony and all that. So kind of relate to some of the stuff we were talking about the other day.
Well, expert testimony is only good if it's from James Tour. If it's not from James Tour, then I don't think it is, right? According to them.
Or what's the guy did replacing Darwin?
Jensen?
Jensen, yeah, if it's from Jensen, apparently it's good. And if it's from that Carter guy, it's supposed to be good. All right, roll that beautiful bean footage.
You're not sure where? I'm not sure where it was.
It started about hour 46 minutes 40 seconds.
Okay. I was like, okay, it's not.
You can tell because my comments are in the live chat there.
Hour 46, you said? 46 and what?
And 40 seconds.
Okay, we're about right there.
I want to address something that Andrew said in the chat. Andrew, yeah, ideally, that an expert should have expertise in the field. But see, that's kind of that's kind of a non-issue though, because like if I get, I don't know, Dr. Georgia Purdom up here to talk about genetics and how it doesn't fit the evolutionary model. She's got a PhD in molecular genetics. Do you think that an evolutionist would listen to her? Would you listen to her? No, you wouldn't, because the preconceived, you might, but the general evolutionary population would not, because there's a preconceived commitment to materialistic naturalism. And so even if she could talk for an hour and present a very strong case that the genetics does not support the Darwinian worldview, and it wouldn't move most people.
Was it that echoey in originally?
Oh shit! Sorry, guys.
I don't think so.
Okay, that's all I had.
Let's try it now. You ready?
I'm ready.
People, because most people have a preconceived commitment to materialism. It's not about who has the experts. There are experts on both sides. It's about the preconceived notions that these experts bring in. Like, I'm not an expert under your definition of an expert on polyploidy. But I'll tell you what, I could probably sit down with most of the experts and have an intelligent conversation. Not because I've got any kind of massive training in it. It's because I have spent a lot of time reading their papers.
Yeah.
I have 4 of those big brown manila folders full of printed articles, and that doesn't even cover all the articles I've read.
Only 4?
On that, just on that topic. Right? Now, does that make me an expert in your definition? No, it doesn't. But I'll tell you what, I could have an intelligent conversation about the topic. And that's the thing. Like,
what are they talking about? What topic are they talking about?
Basically, what was the exact question, Andrew, real quick?
Well, they were just responding to something I had said in the chat. I don't know what they were talking about before. But yeah, I just posted this thing in the chat. Maybe it's something to do with it, but I can't remember exactly. Sorry about that.
Well, I just want to point out that many UFO, Bigfoot, anti-vax, et cetera, conspiratorial theorist has folders full of crap and articles.
Yeah, with strings connecting them.
And I'm not saying that Emery didn't read those items or what, but I don't know that he would be considered an expert in the field. And the only reason why we appeal to experts is because if they've been writing papers, if they've been submitting them, having them peer reviewed, these are the kinds of content that are submitted, their methodologies declared, and the results are written up. It's my daily weekly call.
Yeah, by that criteria, a lot of us here are experts because we've all read tons of papers, and I have 2 big filing boxes full of papers and another stack that I'm trying to sort. I mean, if that makes me an expert, I disagree with Emery, right?
Yeah. I'll bet you when Georgia Purdom comes up and gives her genetics, whatever, of evolution being false, she's full of shit, and she's got bad arguments. And you know who's going to take to point that out? Another expert.
Yeah, but the thing about Georgia is they always have her talk about geology instead of genetics, right?
Yeah, I've noticed. I've never seen her speaking on genetics, but she has spoken on the flood. So,
yeah. Can I say something really quickly?
Sure,
Leo.
Because what Emery said was just not true. He said it's not. Well, the first half of it was. The second half of it wasn't. He said there's experts on both sides, which is true. It's not about the experts, which is also true. But then he said it's about the preconceived notions these experts have. No, that's not true. It is true that it's not about the experts, but he should have followed that up with, and there's a reason that he didn't, that it's about the data. It is about what direction the data points us in, what conclusions we can draw from the data. And that is why you will find that while there are experts on both sides, the overwhelming majority of them tend to lean to one side over the other. And there's a reason for that. And that reason is all of the data that we have.
Yeah.
Right. Or responding to that, Leo, like I don't remember if I pointed this out in like what they're gonna get to. But like it's not just about credentials, it's about what other people in the field, in your respective field, think of you, basically, like what they think of your methodologies and such. Am I right on that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if you're in a field where you just pick any industry, if you're shit at your job, people are going to know about it, and they're not going to call on you. They're not going to ask you to participate in projects with them. And if you have to be, corrected all the time, then yeah, they're not going to really read your papers if making papers is what your industry does,
I did want to say really quickly that I just did a quick Google search on Georgia Purdom, and I'm getting just answers in Genesis, Creation Museum, Master Books, Ark Encounter, Creation.com. So, and again, that this alludes to what I said earlier, that people don't just look at what degrees you have. Yes, a degree, especially a graduate degree, is a qualification. It is a credential worth having, but that's not what solely is used in determining whether somebody is an expert on something. We look at their research that they've done. In fact, research is generally what people are going to be looking for. Yeah, it's cool that you have a PhD, but what research have you done? That's what people want to know about. And if your research is something like Georgia Purdom's, you're not going to be considered very credible.
Right. It's about what it's not really about so much their credentials as what training they've had and how they're kind of continuing that training, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what their field is, basically what they're working on, has a lot to do with it. And then, of course, we are going to check where they're coming from, and if they're coming from a biblical background where they've signed papers saying that the Bible comes first, we're going to be a little suspicious of their idea, I think.
But do you notice how that points to just a little bit of hypocrisy? Because Emery is sitting here talking about, it's all about the preconceived notions these scientists has, right, implying that, the secular scientists have some sort of preconceived notions implicit in their research that make it inaccurate, all the while glossing over the obvious preconceived notions that are present in the researchers that are on their side that are not present in secular research.
Well, here's the interesting thing now. If a geneticist studied dogs and he studied dog breeds in the last 500 or 1,000 years, they wouldn't have any problem with that, with what that geneticist came up with. Yet that geneticist would use exactly those same tools to go back before canines and raccoons and bears split, right? Mm-hmm. And he would use exactly. So what bias exactly is he using? The only bias he's using is that he doesn't necessarily think that it all began 6,000 years ago. He doesn't refer to that. So he is unbiased in that he is not telling you how long it took, whereas they are putting a marker down in the sand at 6,000 years. So I think that's a very different way of looking at it, right?
I just looked at Georgia Purdom on Google Scholar, and the first thing I see is a creationist perspective of beneficial mutations in bacteria, determining the arc kinds. Oh, wow.
I saw that.
The intelligent design movement. Does the identity of the creator really matter? Is natural selection the same as evolution? Like, and
the Bible is not a fucking paper.
Yeah, in the places that they're published, Proceedings of the Sixth International Conference on Creationism, Answers Research Journal, Answers in Depth, Answers Research Journal, Answers in Genesis. I don't know what a Cedar.
So what you're saying, Leo, is that they're not peer reviewed. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Oh, shocker!
Is the Bible peer reviewed?
Maybe it was peer reviewed by God.
Genesis peer reviewed. I don't know. Maybe it's been reviewed a lot. That's for goddamn sure. But
should we keep going, or do you want to save this for another time, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, it's up to you. Oh, it's 5-4, but it's up to you guys. What do you want to do?
We can keep going.
I'm willing to keep going.
I'd rather keep going, honestly.
Okay.
Yeah, if we don't have,
Okay, so hold on, just really quickly. The Cedarville magazine, I looked it up. It's from Cedarville University, which is a private Baptist university in Cedarville, Ohio.
Wow.
Okay, so that explains that.
Oh my.
Yeah. No rigorous academic research done by this person at all. At least nothing on Google Scholar.
Which we can't deny the possibility, but they better put out more than that.
Gotta get, yeah, they're gonna have to do more than that. Okay, roll it.
Sure.
Ideally, that an expert should have expertise in the field, but
Yeah.
that's kind of a non-issue though, because
No.
like if I get, I don't know, Dr.
Wait, did
Georgia
you already
Berto
play
up
this
here to
part?
talk about genetics and how it doesn't fit the evolutionary model. She's got a PhD in molecular genetics.
We already
Do you
heard this.
think that an evolutionist would listen to her? Would you listen to her? No, you wouldn't. Because
Does she have a PhD in molecular genetics?
Yes, she does, from Ohio
Okay,
State University.
So what was her PhD thesis? Has anybody ever looked into that?
No,
No wonder.
I don't know how to find that.
I don't either. I bet somebody here does know how
Does
to find
anybody
it.
know? Does anybody know what year she graduated?
I don't know.
Nope.
It's really interesting to me that she has that degree and yet she has the beliefs that she does. Interesting. I don't know how you put the two things together, but anyway, that's just me. Okay, want me to play?
Sure.
Yeah.
the preconceived,
Might want to skip
you
ahead.
might, but the general
What?
I'm going to skip ahead like 10 seconds. We've already seen all this.
evolutionary populistic naturalism. And so even if she could talk for an hour and present a very strong case that the genetics does not support the Darwinian worldview, and it wouldn't move most people.
Right.
Because most people have a preconceived commitment to materialism.
Nope.
It's not about who has that these experts bring in. Like,
Whoops,
I am not.
Yeah, that's not because people have. What he's trying to say is that the reason that all these the degrees don't matter. Creationists have degrees. The reason they're not listened to is because of it's all the biases, all the bias that these secular scientists have against us. No, that's not why. It's that your position straightforwardly and quite succinctly that this is just the reason your position is not supported by any data, even from fields outside of biology, especially from fields outside of biology.
Right.
Yeah.
Simple as that.
So he says we're biased and they're not, and they're the ones that
It's just projection.
1,000 years.
It's just projection.
Yeah, it's disconcerting. And I don't think most evolutionary biologists think about materialism or atheism or any of that.
Nope.
Hardly ever. They don't even know what creationists are, most of them, according to Molecular Alchemy and a few others I've talked to. It's just not on their radar. It's like these guys are like fringe cookies.
The creationist intelligent design debate and whether or not it's a thing and how seriously it's considered is it's pretty much non-existent within the realm of academia. It's not nearly as big as you see here on internet, on YouTube and Twitter and everything like that.
All three of these fringe cookies on the that's what I want to call them on the screen here, Maddox and Cell and Moynag or whatever the hell his name is. None of them are willing to talk to us. They're afraid of us. They're scared to death to come over here and talk to us because they get their butts kicked.
What's the deal with LPP not wanting to debate anyone here? Is that?
Oh, LPP a long time ago when I kept asking him for a paper and he refused, and I had a debate with him once and I didn't, I basically agreed with his code thing and I agreed with his information thing. And since then he hasn't wanted to talk to me. And I asked him for a paper and I kept getting, I became real aggravating because he wouldn't give me the paper. And then he decided that he'll never talk to me again. So, and Sel decided he wouldn't talk to me because I irritate him, and Emery decided he wouldn't talk to me because I irritate Sel. But the real reason they won't talk to me is they're afraid of me.
Speed, I will always talk to you. Do not worry.
Oh, thank you, Dan.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't know if Sal would have a debate with me. It would be interesting. I wouldn't mind having it. Well, not really a debate, but it's more of a
Sal
discussion.
likes debates.
I don't think so either. That's why I'd rather have a discussion with him. Quantum John has straightforwardly said on more than one occasion that he will not debate me, and I don't know. I doubt Emery would either.
Leo, do you see the title of Purdam's paper or thesis?
No, it's not on Google Scholar.
No, it's look at the screen.
It's not on Google Scholar, which is weird.
Do they publish theses on Google Scholar?
Well, Google Scholar
Google
Scholar is just a database for papers.
Yeah,
it's not itself a publication.
The title of her thesis is on the screen.
Mm-hmm.
Right there. Okay, never mind. Roll that beautiful footage.
You want me to roll this wonderful footage?
I'm not an expert under your definition of an expert on polyploidy, but I'll tell you what, I could probably sit down with most of the experts and have an intelligent conversation. You know, not because I've got any kind of massive training in it. It's because I have spent a lot of time reading their papers.
Yeah.
I mean, just as I have 4 of those big brown manila folders.
Oh, we've been here.
Full of printed articles, and that doesn't even cover all the articles I've read on that, just on that topic. Right? And now, does that make me an expert in your definition? No, it doesn't. But I'll tell you what, I could have an intelligent conversation.
Did somebody say Torskia?
Yes, this was something I was thinking about because it might have been on this stream actually that I was listening in, but last night I was listening to something. And it was, I think it might have been this because Quantum John was in it, and he was talking about all the papers that he reads, and I was thinking about reading all these guys talk about it, everything they know. They've got all this knowledge because they've read all this technical literature on the subject. But then I got to thinking something. Understanding that technical literature, being able to dissect that information and understand it requires already having oftentimes a strong understanding of a subject generally in a specified way. Exactly. You can't really learn the subject by reading technical literature because that literature demands an understanding of that subject. So when they say that they learned this subject just by reading the technical literature, I'm sorry, but I have to call bullshit, because as somebody who has read technical literature and who has engaged with people who have written technical literature, you need a prior understanding of that subject to understand the literature, the academic literature, and the research that is put out there.
Yeah, when I first started with neuroscience and this, I could not understand the papers until I read a ton of textbooks and a ton of papers, and eventually you'll gain an understanding of what they're talking about. But it's really difficult.
Mechanics. Yeah, it was the same with me in quantum mechanics.
Yeah, most of it looks like gobbledygook until you've done the background work on it. But like Emery is a biology student, but he has admitted that he doesn't like chemistry or the molecule part. And so
we got to remember, we can't construe him not liking that with him not understanding it, because I know people that are very, very good at math and absolutely hate it.
Yeah, but I think he said that he stays away from that stuff.
Oh, I wanted to share something with Leo. Leo, I have a clip for you from Doug Dawkins. Do you want to hear it?
Sure.
It's about it's very short. It's 9 seconds, but it is about your sexuality if you don't care.
That's fine.
Okay.
He doesn't know my sexuality, but
right.
He doesn't know he has the hots for
juice.
Okay. Can you see my? Okay, so this is the clip. I got this yesterday.
I'll bet you anything. Listen to me. I'll bet you anything. If he really is 25 years old, I'll bet you anything that guy's a homosexual. Okay.
If you're 26, there's no way.
But if you're 25, gay is today is bright.
What the fuck? What the hell did he mean by that?
I'll bet you anything.
I have no idea, to be completely honest.
I didn't know it had anything to do with how old you were.
He's as wrong as two boys fucking. He's 25 years old. He is just wrong.
The thing is, calling me a homosexual, I don't ever take as an insult because I don't view homosexuality as something negative. So, like for me, in order for something to be an insult, the thing that you're using insultively has to be something that is generally considered or construed in a negative manner. Like it has to, that's kind of the point of an insult is. So when you say, "Oh, you're gay," it's like there's nothing wrong with being gay. So why is that an insult?
Yeah. Well, I see what you're saying, but like there are masculine men out there that feel like you're attacking their masculinity because they
gay.
Yeah. And
then they're not masculine. I would argue they're not masculine if that's
right. Isn't it kind of ironic that like
because isn't courage and the ability to brush off like petty attacks and things like that, and this ability to get over it and all this, isn't that a part of being masculine? And then
it's also ironic. This is the biggest irony of society, right? And with respect to gender, that it's masculine to like femininity, right? Like usually, okay, men are what's supposed to do hunt. Hunt is a masculine thing, right? That's why it's masculine to like it, okay? But women, the epitome of femininity, right? That it's masculine to like something feminine, so it reverses, right? So if anything, if you're still sticking by the normal standard of what constitutes masculinity outside of like actual sexual preference, women or men or whatever, it's actually more masculine to like other men.
And it's weird how this element of the Christian subculture is just so focused in on what's masculine. I never think about what's masculine. I don't give a crap. You know why?
I think about what's right.
I definitely think about it because like I have in-laws, right? I'm gonna have in-laws and they care about that crap. So
anyway, can we watch some more of this video?
Yeah.
For $50, I can have their toenails ripped out one by one. That'll change their mind.
But by the way, I was at the clinic today and I got to do it again. Some young lady, doctor's assistant, asked me, "Are you sexually active?" And I looked at her and said, "With myself." Yeah, it always gets them. It's pretty cool. And I explain I don't involve other people in my sex life.
That's when you hold up your hand. You got any chapstick? Her lips are shaved.
Okay, rolling.
Conversation about the topic, and that's the thing. Like, just because someone doesn't have the training in the relevant field doesn't mean they have not trained themselves. This is the Google era. It's easy to access scientific papers and read them and understand and learn things from them. Yeah, you may not be able to do the experimental procedures exactly the way that they need to be done because you don't have experience with that, but you can understand the concepts. The experimental stuff you can be taught, because that's basically just, you use this vial here and you use this chemical. You can be taught that if you already understand the concepts when you...
First of all, you can be taught all that stuff, but the point is, how many times has a discovery or an advancement been overturned because scientists started looking at the paper and realized that the methodology was flawed in some way?
Right.
That's important. That's part of expertise.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that they must realize is that they hold one view and we hold a different view. So how do they think that works if in the era of Google we can just look up the papers? So
yeah,
what is the difference?
He's admitting that we have access to the very thing that has led to the downfall of creationism, and that's access to information, access to scientific data and academic literature. He's not wrong that you can learn a hell of a lot without having a college education.
Wait, so I have a question for you. I'm not disputing.
Look at me. I don't know. I think Speed. I think you did go to college for like a year, but he doesn't have a PhD in anything. I don't have any college degrees in anything.
Leo, I'm not disputing what you're saying, but if you found out all you found out about the next in 100 years from now, all the scientists are creationists, what would you think happened?
I would think that they found something.
Really? No, I would think there was a takeover, theocracy, or something like that.
Yeah,
I
that's
don't know.
What is wrong? Speed, come on, man.
No, if like 90% of scientists started believing in creationism and a young Earth, and they had papers to back it up, I mean, I would definitely have to understand what they would say.
See, now you're changing the hypothetical. You're changing the hypothetical because you said now they're bringing scientific papers and everything. So now you've changed the hypothetical to there's actual scientific data substantiating the young Earth creationist view.
Yeah.
I don't think was the original hypothetical.
Okay, so you're saying that if 90% of the scientists were creationists, but I'm still reading the same papers that I'm reading.
No, we don't know anything about the papers. The papers could be anything.
It's just you wake up tomorrow and it's 100 years in the future, and 90% of scientists are creationists. It's a new thing that comes from Pew Research Center. It's the first thing you read on your phone. What do you think? Why do you think that happened? What would be your first guess?
I would be surprised and agnostic until I went out and read some papers. I mean, I wouldn't just automatically decide that I was right? I mean, I think what the fuck happened, you know.
But given your knowledge of the papers that you have read, wouldn't you think it is probable on some level that was a political, sociological explanation rather than they found new data?
Yeah,
I wouldn't just assume that. I mean, I would.
Well, it's not an assumption, right? You have knowledge right now of the world scientifically, right? Presumably you do.
How much do you trust in it? Do you trust that it will last 100 years? I do.
Yeah, but it's 100 years old, Danny. You know, I mean, I would have to look again.
Relativity is 100 years old, and we're still fucking using it, and we're still getting awesome data from it.
So you mean if it was
100 years after relativity that we confirmed the existence of gravitational waves? It doesn't matter that it's 100 years old. I think the point here is how much do you trust in the data that you currently understand? Do you trust it well enough to assume its truth 100 years in the future? I do.
I do, but that would shape.
And where I don't, I could specify that exception.
But I just don't see. I think it'd be. I think what you said, being agnostic, I totally respect that. But I think that it would be totally even more. I think you could support the claim that it's likely sociological, political explanations for why scientists would change their minds that way, rather than the data. Because given the data we have today, or something like that.
If I heard that 100 years from now, if I woke up and I would say, what, did they re-elect Trump? Or
did John Maddox get elected or something?
Yeah.
The thing is, if I were to accept that, okay, if I were to look at it and accept it that way and say, okay, I should doubt the structure of society rather than doubt the science that I believe, then I should do the same thing today. Because 90%.
You read the papers today.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? But I think that if you watch my video on authorities, there are lots of views on how we should treat authorities. My view is that if you haven't read any papers, if you don't know anything about the subject, there's a practical reason to accept the consensus.
Right.
And at the very least, there's a practical reason to accept the consensus. I don't know very much about how geology, right? I accept what geologists have to say because I take them to be, I take the consensus to be kind of reason giving, as well as the level of training and background knowledge that they have, in terms of those that participate in the consensus. But I don't really have a real justification for any of my beliefs about, the Earth being 14.6 billion years old, other than I know a little bit about radiometric dating.
The Earth is older than the universe?
Sorry, universe.
Yeah.
What is the universe, right? They didn't change it. They changed it recently?
13.77. It dropped from 13.82 to 13.77 billion years old.
Like that, yeah.
Yeah, but if I was asleep for 100 years and everybody started believing something different, I would try to maintain an open mind and see what the fuck's
it's
going
not just that people are believing something different. It's that people are believing something different 100 years now that has passed that nobody would have expected to somehow be true. It'd be like if you woke up 100 years and 90% of scientists thought the Earth was flat. Would you think that the Earth magically got flat? Or would you assume that some sort of socio-political thing happened that made most people claim to be a flat earther?
Yeah, I think that's likely. I think that would be the more likely explanation.
Exactly. Same with creationism.
God, that's a dark view of mankind. I don't know. I think I would if it was the Earth was flat. I think I'd go outside and say, really? I don't know. Anyway, okay, moving on.
That's how I think it, and I think of that in terms of I think it's even less predictive though. Like I don't think I could make those sorts of predictions in philosophy though, right? Because like it could be that in 100 years everyone's a physicalist or dualist, and I wouldn't have any clue what explains that. I wouldn't have a clue.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I think it would be much different for philosophy.
I got a question. If it turns out that the holographic universe is correct, does that mean the Earth is flat?
Nope.
Yeah.
All it means is that 4-dimensional space-time is emergent from information encoded on a lower 2-dimensional light-like or gravitational-like boundary.
I guess it'd be a question of what is the real Earth? Is it the information or is it the projection?
Both.
That's true.
The projection is the information.
Okay, guys.
Okay, that's fair.
How much I got to pay to get out of here?
So we'll
at least 20.
pick this up tomorrow.
20 each.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay,
that's fair.
Yeah. So, send me your info, and I'll see what I can do.
Donate mine to charity.
Okay. Yeah, trust me, I did. I just just hit the button. Okay. Anyway, I kind of want to end this for the day. It's kind of getting late here. Late in my head.
Late.
I haven't had any sleep today.
Where are you at?
What?
Huh?
Like,
I'm in Minnesota. We sleep all day. We stay up all night. We're like bats.
What do you gotta get up at 3 o'clock to go to Denny's? Like,
I have to go take a fucking nap.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't like these things to run much more than 2 hours because they just it gets crazy.
He's a weenie.
Well, I'm a weenie, and I have who the hell was it? Immutable always says to me, "I've got a life." I kind of have a life. Anyway, so let's wrap it up for the day, and we'll get back to this another time. I've got a lot of bookmarks from this particular video. You can see that I've got a whole bunch of bookmarks.
Wait, how do you do the bookmarks? Do you have to install something?
I've got a program called Rocket. I think it is Rocket. Let me see here. It's called Rocket Note. And you install it. It's a Google extension, but the guys disappeared. They charge you $2.99 a month, but they disappeared on me, and they haven't responded because there are problems with it. You see the formatting on this stuff when I edit it. It's got like this weird shit here, and they're supposed to have a database where you can get all the notes for all the videos you've ever bookmarked, and it's not working, and they haven't gotten back to me, so I can't really recommend them. But all you do, like if I'm up here and I'm at a particular spot, if I hit the P key, P as in Paul, I get a bookmark. So it's really kind of convenient. And I really like the program, but fuck, I'm gonna have to abandon it if they don't get back to me. They haven't. Customer service used to be really good. This Dustin, and he hasn't gotten back to me now in about a month, or 2 months. So something's up. I mean, if they're only charging $2.99 a month and I'm the only customer, I can understand.
Why don't you pay the yearly? It's only $12 a month if it's yearly. $12 a year.
I don't know if they have that option even. I'm
just looking. I'm buying it right now.
Oh, you are? Okay. Yeah. Well, tell them Speed of Sound sent you. I think. Okay. What is he? Yeah, I think he has me down at Speed of Sound. So anyway, because I told him I'd promote them if they got their shit together. Because I think it's a wonderful product. Anyway, very useful. Okay. So we're going to end the broadcast for the day, guys.
All right.
What do you think of that?
Stay curious.
Okay.
We should do an after show on my channel then, right?
Yeah, you can. Go ahead.
Goodbye. Who would come in? Just curious. Anybody?
I would come in if Leo's
come in after 5.
There's 14 watching now. We had 25 at one point, so you might get some people over there if you want to have an after show.
I got one thing to do.
What would we be talking about? Just curious.
You want to talk about philosophy, Andrew?
Huh? What? Or
Talk about philosophy?
I don't know too much about philosophy, so I would kind of be clueless.
Don't worry, Leo will come in and explain philosophy, right?
Okay. Okay.
What?
Maybe I'll stop in later and take a look myself. But for now, goodbye, cruel world.
Stay curious.